who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube. I believe we are now live on those platforms. And welcome to all of you here in the Zoom room. It's really wonderful to be here with you all. My name is Juniper. I'm the managing producer for Feldenkrais Access. And I'm so very happy to be here with you all for the first class of New Beginnings with Garet Newell. We're also joined today by Maggie Burrows, who is a Feldenkrais practitioner in London. Maggie will be, hi. Maggie is the assistant teacher for this course series, and she'll be answering any questions that you have during the course of the lesson today. So please don't hesitate to reach out to her. You can reach her through the Zoom menu if you're in Zoom. If you're joining from another platform, either now or later, you can write into the comments section of one of those platforms, and either Maggie or myself will answer your question. And we are also joined by Nadia Genois, who is a Feldenkrais practitioner in Montreal. Nadia will be doing the lesson in sitting today. Hi, Nadia. And if you need to translate the lesson into a sitting position for whatever reason, you can see how Nadia is engaging with the instructions. I'll be periodically spotlighting her, so you'll see her appear on your screen. And if you need to see her more often, please don't hesitate to let me know. We will also be periodically spotlighting our team of Feldenkrais practitioners doing the lesson along with you. And you'll see them as well on your screen. So I hope that is a helpful visual guide for you as you move through the lesson. One other technical thing is if you have your camera turned on, if you're in Zoom and you have your camera turned on, if you could have it showing your whole self so that Garet and Maggie can see you as you move through the lesson, that's super helpful. And then if you wish to not be seen, that's totally fine. But if you press the stop video option in the Zoom menu, that's a lot easier than if you cover up the camera or turn it away from you. Okay, I believe that's it from me. I'm going to hand you over to David, who will introduce Garet.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. It's been too long, as Juniper said, but myself and Feldenkrais Access are very honored to be bringing Garet Newell, our teacher, to you and to be teaching our new course, New Beginnings. Garet lives in Southeast England and has been a Feldenkrais teacher for over 40 years. And she's an outstanding teacher and with a unusual depth of knowledge, a depth of knowledge that makes her, I think, uniquely qualified to be teaching the important material that will be part of this course. I've known her for 40 years, and I know that she is going to bring you very, very rich and therapeutic material. So thank you, Garet, for being with us, and have a good time.
Thank you, David, for that wonderful introduction, and also for inviting me to offer these lessons on this Feldenkrais Access platform. And I also want to thank Juniper and the staff for preparing, for all the time that it takes to prepare for an event like this. So I'm looking forward to introducing all of you to the amazing amount of learning that took place during your first year of life. I'll be teaching a series of lessons in awareness through movement that are all derived from the genius that we know as Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais. I had the privilege to be in his final training in Amherst, which is where I met David. And he began our training with some lessons similar to the ones that I'm going to offer in this series. And I believe it's because he felt that the development of the human being in the first year of life was very, very significant. And he once even said that a human being learns more in their first year of life than they'll ever learn in another year of life. So, so when you think about how and we learned without teachers and without instruction, and it's really what we know of as organic learning. So re-experiencing this organic learning can be very restorative, it can be very re-energizing, and it can provide a kind of neurological reset. So if you think about how we all came into the world, we were very totally helpless beings, and we were dependent on the support of those around us. And during the first year of life, we grew from this complete dependent state to being able to stand on our own feet. And these lessons are designed to help you to enable you to really revisit these steps of development and to also appreciate what you accomplished in that first year of life. So before I start this lesson, I would like to show you something on the screen, and it's a diagram that Juniper will put on the screen, which shows the relationship of the head to body size at different times of life. And if you look at the third one from the left, that's the newborn baby. And you can see that the head is about 1/4 of the size of the body. And you can see when you're an adult, later on, it's about 1/10 or 1/12 of the size of the body. So you can take that off now. So this is really significant to the lesson that I'm going to be teaching today, because one of the first things one of the things a baby learns in the early years of life or the early months of life is how to control and hold their head. And I think you all know, if you pick up a baby within the first 3 months of life, you usually have to hold their head. They can't hold their head themselves. And so this lesson is designed to revisit that learning that the baby went through organically without a teacher, like you're going to do it now with a teacher. So yeah, I think you'll find out how you manage to do that through this lesson. But before we start, I just wanted to say a few things about the lesson. I'm going to be teaching very, very slowly with a lot of attention to details and to sensations. And some of you might find it too slow. Many of you who are here for the first time, if you're used to the pace of an exercise class, this will feel very, very slow to you, which I understand, because it did to me when I first did some Feldenkrais lessons. I came from a background of dance and was used to being very active and very fast. So I hope that you, those of you who are finding it slow, that you'll have some patience with yourself and to try to appreciate the value of paying attention to something that's different than achieving, and that you try to really enjoy that process of learning. So I suggested that those of you that you have a towel or something nearby to use in case you need some support under your head. I'll explain that once you lie down. But and most of the ATM will take place with your legs bent. I know for a lot of you, having the legs straight is not so comfortable, but at the start, it's important to have the legs straight. And I'm just going to suggest that those of you who are wearing glasses or spectacles, that if you can remove them, it might be more comfortable for some of the movements in the lesson. So would you like to please come and lie on your back with your legs extended? So at the moment, without any support under your head, because I want everybody to feel where the back of your head is on the floor if you don't support it. So this is an important aspect of our organization. And you can probably feel that there's a certain part of the back of your head that's in contact with the floor. And that if you move your chin a little bit further away from your chest, you'll increase the curvature in your neck. And the place that you're resting on will change, will move further up the back of your head. And if you bring your chin a little bit closer to your chest, you'll feel that the back of your neck will get longer and that place in the back of your head will lower. So this is just to find out where you are without any support, where you feel that contact with the back of your head and the floor. And now I'm going to suggest that those of you who are finding that your chin is a little bit away from your chest, that you put an amount of support behind your head so that your eyes would be looking straight ahead if you were standing. So that's a kind of a way to measure how much support do you need, or do you need support at all? You may not even need to do this, but I'm just suggesting it for the people whose neck is a little bit extended when you come into this lying position with your legs straight. And now just begin to feel some other aspects of your contact with the floor. Just feel where your shoulder blades are in relationship to the floor. Just notice how your arms are lying at your sides. And notice what parts of your back you can feel in contact with the floor. What touches the floor in the back of your pelvis. And how are your legs organized at the beginning of this lesson? And by that, I mean you can pay attention to how far apart they are. And you can pay attention to how rotated the legs are and compare the sense of rotation from one side to the other. And now in this position, and be sure that you have support if you need it before you do this, I'm going to ask you to lift your head as if you want to look down towards your feet. But if it feels at all uncomfortable, just do it in your imagination. You'll feel the effort in your imagination. And it's meant to be an effort right now, because lifting your head with your legs straight, you can feel really the weight of your head. So just do it a few times, or do it in your imagination a few times, so you can feel the weight, you can feel the effort, and you can also feel where are you making that effort. So usually you'll feel there's a small amount of musculature that's involved in this, and it's very concentrated in your neck and in your upper chest. But this is just to get a feel for what it's like to lift your head with your legs straight and to feel how hard it is. And your head isn't even 1/4 of your body weight. So can you slowly bend your legs now and bend your knees and bring your feet to stand. And in this position, try again this movement of lifting your head. Again, only if it feels possible without any big strain. You want to feel a little bit of the effort, but you don't want to feel strain. There's a difference between the two. And just feel when your legs are in this position, if it's a bit easier to do this task of lifting your head away from the floor. And many of you will feel that already there's some difference in the effort and maybe also in what's participating so that you can lift your head. Where are you having to work to lift your head? And now slowly just let your legs come down to the floor and take a rest. Those of you who are familiar with the Feldenkrais method know that resting is an integral part of this learning process. Every time that you rest, you give yourself some time just to undo any efforts that you were making to follow the instructions. And it gives you some time for your nervous system to, I know this is a funny term, but to integrate what it is that you were experiencing. And this is a process that goes on internally, and we're not always so aware of it. But resting and pausing is the time that these kinds of brain processes have a better chance of taking place. And also while you're resting right now, just pay attention to the movement of your breath. Without changing it, just see if you can feel where you are aware of movement as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And And now slowly bend your knees again to bring your feet to stand. Interlace your fingers now in front of you so you can see them. And take your hands now and place them, be sure your legs are bent. Take your hands now and place them behind the part of the back of your head that's resting on the floor. So that place that you felt resting on the floor is now can rest in the palms of your hands. And now keeping your elbows just as wide as it's comfortable, lift your head a few times now, feeling how you can let the weight of your head rest a bit in your hands, and you can let your arms help to lift your head. Do it a few times with the elbows staying wide so you can feel what that organization is like and how much of your upper back comes away from the floor, how easy or difficult it is with your arms in this wide position. And then try bringing your elbows a little bit more towards one another and feel how this position creates a bit more of a sling-like structure that can hold the weight of your head. And as you are lifting it now, you can really let go of any effort in your neck and let that effort be somewhere else. You'll feel now more of your chest is engaged, and you'll feel that your head, more of your back can come away from the floor, and you're still looking downwards towards that space in between your legs. Just do that a few more times with the elbows coming towards one another and really letting your head rest in that organization of your arms. And now slowly come back down to the floor. Let your arms rest at your sides and let your legs lengthen. And I'd also like to remind those of you who are familiar with the method, but especially those of you who are new, that anytime that you want to stop earlier than when I say, please take a rest, please do that. It's really up to you to determine when you feel like that's enough repetition. Some people need more, some people need less. And just notice as you come back to lie, anything that you're aware of in your shoulder blades, your arms, your breathing, and the part of the back of your head that's in contact with the floor. And now slowly bend your knees again so your feet are standing. Interlace your fingers again in the same manner and place your hands behind the back of your head so that part of the back of your head that's resting on the floor can now rest in the palms of your hands. And this time lift your head again, but let your attention now come to what are you doing with your eyes? So bring your elbows toward each other before you lift your head. And just notice where you're looking as you lift your head. And now the next time that you go to lift your head, look with your eyes upwards toward your eyebrows and keep them looking up toward your eyebrows as you lift your head again. And feel if this position or this direction of your eyes, if it interferes with the lifting of your head or not. Do that a few times so you can be sure of what you're sensing. And now the next time that you lift your head, let your eyes just follow this kind of arc of looking at the ceiling and then looking towards the wall in front of you, which is probably what most of you did spontaneously. And now this time, do something else. Just before you lift your head and you have your elbows towards one another, look downwards with your eyes first and then lift your head. And see what that feels like. So your eyes are kind of getting there first, and then your head is following that direction of your eyes. And just notice if that directing your eyes towards the place in between your legs first, if that makes the effort a little bit less of the lifting of your head, or if it influences in some way how you're doing it. And now come and take a rest. You can let your arms rest at your sides and let your legs lengthen. So this is an illustration which I hope most of you were able to feel of how important the eyes are in movement. That if your eyes are going somewhere else than your intention, then that's going to get in the way of the movement being smooth. And in the same way, if your eyes are already organized towards your intention, that's going to somehow make the effort of lifting your head a little bit different. So you may have experienced that, you may not have experienced that. What's important in these lessons is to just stay true to yourself. And some of the ways in which I'm suggesting differences, they may be obvious to you and they may not be obvious to you. So please don't be concerned if that's not the case. There'll be lots of opportunities to try out different variations to see if any of them really do make a difference. So can you bend your knees again, please, and interlace your fingers in front of you so that you can notice when you interlace them, which of your thumbs or which of your index fingers comes on top. And now take them apart and interlace them in the way that you didn't do it spontaneously. And just notice how it feels when the other finger and the other thumb come on top. And now take your hands in this, I'm going to call it your not familiar or your non-habitual interlacing, and place them again behind the back of your head. So the part of your head that's resting on the floor is now resting in your non-habitually interlaced hands. And feel what it's like now to bring your elbows toward one another, to look downward with your eyes in between your legs. And notice if this very slight change in the interlacing, if it makes any kind of change for you in where you're looking with your eyes, in where your nose is oriented. And sometimes this very small change in the manner in which we do something, in the habitual manner in which we do something, we can feel it in a movement like this, just coming back to a movement that you've already done with your different interlacing. Now take that interlacing apart and try it, go back to the one that you chose spontaneously first. And notice when you lift your head now, if any of the differences that did occur when you did the other interlacing, if they're clearer to you now. Sometimes you feel it in the back, sometimes you feel it in your weight is strong, is more on one side than on the other. And sometimes there's a slight rotation in your torso, so your eyes and your nose might be oriented slightly differently. Okay, come and take a rest. Let your arms rest at your sides and let your legs lengthen. So this subject of habitual and non-habitual is a subject that's a constant interest to us in the Feldenkrais method. And it's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, just how many of the activities that we do every day, that we repeat every day, we do in a manner that is habitual. We always use one hand to do something. We always find ourselves organized in a certain way. And it's a very, very interesting, this is an introduction maybe for some of you, but it's a very interesting theme to look at in your life and to see if you start to play with this and find if there are different ways that you can do the same thing. I mean, if you cross your arms in front of your chest right now, just like you're crossing your arms in front of your chest, you'll notice that one arm comes on top and you didn't plan it, you didn't think about it. And then if you take your arms away and you cross them the other way, you'll see, oh, I never do that way. Some of you can't even find it. It's so unfamiliar. So these are the kind of of ways in which we don't really realize how habitual a lot of our actions are. And it's quite I think it's quite an interesting activity to play with. And you can think of lots of examples of this, which foot do you stand on when you put your socks on or your trousers on? And you can spend a whole day paying attention to your habits. So bend your knees again and interlace your fingers in the way that you'd like to have them now. You might have found that the non-habitual interlacing was more comfortable. I'll let you choose. And this time, as you lift your head and you pay attention now, we're kind of adding things to this, what to pay attention to. So pay attention first to the elbows coming towards one another. Pay attention to where your eyes are looking. And this time, pay attention to what you're doing with your breathing while you're lifting your head. Most of you are breathing, I'm sure. But how are you breathing and what are you doing? Next time you bring your head back down, would you please take a deep breath in and hold it, and then lift your head while you keep holding your breath in your chest, and just see how that feels. The people I can see that doesn't make it so easy to lift your head when your chest is really full and when you're holding your breath. So try something else. Let your head come back. And this time, as you're lifting your head away from the floor, take your breath in. And as you're letting your head come back to the floor, let your breath come out. So do remember to have the elbows towards one another so you can really feel your head resting in that sling. And see how that feels as you breathe in, as your head comes away from the floor, and you breathe out as it returns. Now, there's a third thing that you can do, and that is that you can breathe in, and as you lift your head, let the breath come out. And just see how that feels when you do it that way around. You breathe in just before you lift your head so that as you breathe out, you can let your breath out. As you lift your head, you can let your breath out. And feel what parts of your back are touching the floor when you do that. And then slowly come back. Let your arms rest at your sides and let your legs lengthen. So we all know how important our breath is and how important the integration of breathing and moving is. And as many of you felt in the first example when you held your breath, that it has some way of interfering with your movements, especially since you were holding your breath in a part of you that you actually needed to have soften and move to be able to enable this lifting of your head to take place and to feel easy. And just notice now in resting, if you feel any difference in your resting breathing. Some parts of your chest are more engaged in the action of breathing. And if your contact with the floor feels any different, especially in your back. Your ribs, which are very involved in moving, are in your front and your sides, as well as in your back. And you might feel that as you're lying, that as you breathe in, there's a little more pressure of the ribs against the floor. And as you breathe out, that pressure changes. So bend your knees again. And this time, take your right arm, but right hand, so the right hand will go behind the back of your head, right in that place where both hands were to lift your head. And take your left hand and find some structures in your upper chest. You know you have collarbones that you're usually aware of and you can see. And just below them is a big bone in the middle of your chest called your sternum. And if you can just place your hand somewhere slightly below your collarbones and just slightly near the top of your sternum and near the top of your ribs. And this time, as you lift your head with your right hand, bringing your elbow closer to the side of your face first, using what you learned about using your eyes and using your breathing, and just feel as you lift your head what's happening under your left hand, the one that's resting on your chest. So just lift your head using everything that you tried out so far that may have made the lifting of your head a little bit simpler, with a little bit less effort. And see if you can feel as you lift your head that something's happening under in that area of your upper chest. And now if you flatten your hand a little bit, you can let your hand help that part of your chest soften. And you'll notice that as it softens, you might feel that your head can come a little bit further away from the floor. So do it in the upper part of your chest, just below your collarbones. And of course, you're breathing out, aren't you, as you're lifting your head? Because you can see that why breathing out is important, because it allows the chest to do the movement that it needs to do to support the lifting of your head. And just do that a few more times. And then slowly stop that. Let your arms rest at your sides and slowly let your legs come down and lengthen. And just feel how you're in contact with the floor now, and notice if there's some sensation in between your shoulder blades, so that part of your back that's a little more clear. Or maybe there's a little more movement just in your resting breath in the upper ribs and collarbones. And maybe you just feel a little flatter, a little bit wider in your upper chest. And now slowly bend your legs again. Bring your feet to stand. And this time, take your left hand and place it behind the part of the back of your head that's resting on the floor. And take your right hand and find that place on your chest just below your collarbones at the very top of the sternum near the upper ribs. And again, try this with your hands in the reverse position of bringing your elbow towards the side of your face, looking downwards with your eyes, feeling the breath go out as you lift your head, and then feeling how your right hand can now encourage those ribs in the upper part of your chest to soften a little bit as you lift your head, and you can feel how that softening of the upper ribs allows your out breath, your breathing out, to be really easy and clear. And you might feel now that a different part of your back is pressing into the floor, and a different amount of lifting of your head is now possible without making a bigger effort to do it. And just try that a few times. And then let that go. And again, let your arms rest at your sides and let your legs lengthen. And as you think about these two different configurations, the different hands behind your head, was it different on one side than on the other? And what are you feeling now as you come back to rest on the floor? You might start to feel a little bit flatter or wider, or a bit more of your chest is in contact with the floor. And you might also notice something slightly different in the rhythm of your breathing, in the movement of your breathing. Slowly bend your knees, and bring your feet to stand. Leave your arms at your sides for the time being. And feeling the contact with your feet on the floor, just slowly do a movement that rolls your pelvis slightly so that your lower back can come a bit closer to the floor. And then let it go and return. So your pelvis is rolling so that it's a little bit easier to let the lower back come closer to the floor. And you might feel that there's an entire lengthening through your spine when you do this, or through the rest of your back. And you might even feel your head moving slightly away. And just check that your feet are in a good position for helping you to do this rolling movement of your pelvis. If they're too far away or too close, they may not support it as easily. Okay, and let that movement go. You can keep your legs bent for a short rest, or you can lengthen them if you'd like to. And if you have lengthened your legs, slowly bend them again so that you can bring your feet to stand. And with the same movement that you've been doing of using your feet to roll your pelvis to bring the lower back a little bit closer to the floor, just begin to experiment with the distance between your feet. So if you make them a little bit wider and you do the same movement, how does it feel? And then if you bring your feet a little bit closer together and you do the same movement, how does that feel? And if you bring your feet now further away from your buttocks, from your sitting bones, so you widen that distance between your heels and your pelvis, and you do the same movement with your legs organized in this organization, how does that feel? And then bring your heels a little bit closer to your buttocks. And see how it feels then to use your feet to roll your pelvis with these different relationships between your legs. And what you probably find is that there's an ideal place where the pressure that you use to help to let your feet help to roll your pelvis, that gets transmitted through your ankles, through your knees, and through your hip joints in a most kind of organized way. And by organized, I mean it has a little less effort or it feels more comfortable. And you can always experiment with these positions that you choose and just see if there's something that you could do that would make it even easier. So that's just a little example in terms of the relationship between your legs. Let your legs come down to the floor to rest. And in resting, notice actually, are your legs the same distance apart that you noticed them at the beginning of the lesson? Are they rotated in the same way that they were at the beginning? And by that rotation, I mean you can feel the contact that one heel makes with the floor, and you can compare it to the contact that the other heel makes with the floor. And that feeds back something to you about a rotation in your legs, a natural rotation when you come to lie in this position. But you might find that, strangely enough, it's different on one side than on the other. And it may already be different than how it is that you noticed, that you paid attention to your lying when you first came to lie before the lesson started. So now slowly bend your legs again. Bring your feet to stand. And take a little while to find that place that you experimented to find where the help from your feet can really transmit through your pelvis easily. So this time you want to roll your pelvis so that your lower back comes away from the floor. So you make a little space between your lower back and the floor. And at the same time, you'll feel that your belly will come a little bit forwards. Just do that movement a few times, just a very easy, comfortable amount of rolling so that you're creating a little arch, or you're exaggerating the arch in the lower part of your back. And feel how that feels through the rest of your spine, how it transmits to your head and to your neck. And let that movement stop now, and just slowly let your legs lengthen to take a rest. And notice in resting if that part of your lower back in relationship to the floor, if it has a little different space there, or a different feeling, different sensation, and you may have noticed at the beginning. And again, pay attention to the movement of your breath. Your pelvis is connected to your diaphragm muscle, your lower back is connected to your diaphragm muscle, and by doing these movements of your pelvis, often you're going to influence the movement in the lower ribs in your breathing, as well as the movement in your diaphragm, your breathing muscle. And now slowly bend your legs again, bringing your feet to stand. And interlace your fingers again and place your hands behind the back of your head. Roll your pelvis so that you can lift the lower part of your back a little bit away from the floor and keep it in that position. Bring your elbows towards one another and lift your head again, remembering everything about the elbows coming towards one another, your eyes looking downwards, your breath, your exhalation as you lift your head. And just notice if this position of keeping the lower back away from the floor, if it interferes with the movement of lifting your head. It's the other end of your spine. Just do an amount of movement that's comfortable. It might not feel you can reach the same amount of lifting that you did previously. Okay, and slowly let that go. Let your back rest, let your arms come to your sides, and let your legs lengthen. Now bend your legs again, bringing them to that organization that you found that felt most comfortable and felt the most efficient. And interlace your fingers again, bring them behind the back of your head. And this time roll your pelvis so that your lower back can come closer to the floor, and leave it in that closer to the floor position. Bring your elbows towards one another. Lift your head again, looking downwards, breathing out at the same time that you lift your head, feeling your chest soften. And just feel if your lower back is in this relationship to the floor, if it's a bit different to lift your head away from the floor now. Remembering your breath, remembering your eyes, remembering your elbows, letting your head really rest in the sling of your arms. And now slowly take a rest. Let your arms come to your sides, let your legs lengthen. And notice how you feel your contact with the floor right now, how you feel your breathing. And by the way, any of you, I should have said this earlier, but any of you who find it a little bit tiring to stay on your back while resting, you're welcome to roll onto your side to rest, to vary the position slightly if it's more restful for you. But now return to being on your back, to bending your legs so your feet can stand. And interlace your fingers again and place them behind the part of the back of your head that's resting on the floor. And this time, as you lift your head, roll your pelvis so that your lower back comes closer to the floor. And then when your head comes back, let your back return. So in other words, you're not keeping the back in this position, but you're rolling it into the position to come a little bit closer to the floor at the same time that you're lifting your head. And feel if that movement of your pelvis and that kind of lengthening of your lower back, if it affects something in the ease of lifting your head or in the action of lifting your head. And if you can feel that whatever you're doing in your lower spine has a role in this movement in your upper back of lifting your head. Are you remembering to breathe out? Are you remembering to look downwards with your eyes? So all these little variations that we've been doing are accumulative so that you can put them all together and find, hopefully, an easier way of doing and experiencing. Okay, so stop now and take a rest. And notice in resting anything that feels different to you in your contact with the floor, in the movement of your breath, in the weight of certain parts of you in contact with the floor. Maybe your shoulder blades are heavier. Maybe more of your back is in contact with the floor. And maybe your resting breathing has been influenced by what you've been doing. And now slowly bend your legs again so your feet are standing. Interlace your fingers so you can place them behind the back of your head. And this time, as you lift your head, just pay attention to all the accumulative variations that you've experienced. So just pay attention to what are you doing with your elbows as you lift your head. Where are you looking with your eyes? What are you doing with your breathing? Can you feel the movement of your sternum going a little bit downwards and softening? And can you feel your lower back getting a little bit longer? Can you feel the ribs in the front of you coming a little bit closer together while they're moving slightly apart in the back? And can you feel that there's a little bit of a sliding movement of your shoulder blades on your ribs? Can you feel the lengthening in the back of your neck? And that lengthening extends all the way down to your lower back. And then slowly, when you have enough repetitions for your satisfaction, just let your legs lengthen, your arms rest at your sides. And notice again when you come to resting, anything that feels different about your contact with the floor, movement of your breath, your sense of your width, sense of your weight, your sense of your length. And if your arms are resting differently at your sides, if your legs are organized a little bit differently. And now keeping your legs straight, lift your head just like you did at the very beginning to look down towards your feet. And just notice if you're doing it in a slightly different manner than you did when I first suggested at the very beginning of the lesson that you lift your head with your legs straight. So it looks to me like most of you, you can stop doing that now. It looks to me like most of you are engaging a different set of muscles than you did at the very beginning. Do you remember when you first started to lift your head where you felt the effort of lifting your head? And can you feel what's different about that effort of lifting your head now? So what you've learned is something very, very essential to the baby in the first few months of life. You've learned to use more of you to do this task of lifting your head rather than just the few muscles around the neck and the chest that as adults we tend to use. The baby had to use everything it could. So it had to use its flexor muscles, the muscles in your abdomen, the ones that are that were helping you to roll your pelvis. You can feel that they're a part now of the lifting of your head. So it becomes more of a kind of full body engagement than it may have felt at the very beginning. So congratulations, you've learned to lift 1/4 of your body weight in a much more efficient and perhaps easier and hopefully more pleasurable manner. And maybe some of you, I didn't mention this, but some of you who had support behind your head, maybe now you can lie with a little bit less of it because something's shifted in your organization of your head and your neck and your chest so that you don't need quite so much support. And now can you just very slowly bend one leg and bend the other leg? we're going to do something that in the first 3 months you couldn't do. Can you slowly roll to one side and come up to sit? And take a moment in sitting just to feel your sitting, try different ways of sitting. And notice how you feel your head balanced on your spine, how you feel the length of your back, the organization of your head in relationship to your back. Does it feel a little bit easier to sit? And now can you slowly make a transition from sitting to standing? And take a moment in standing just to feel your feet on the floor, feel how your weight is balanced, feel how you can sense your pelvis in relationship to your feet and your shoulder girdle in relationship to your pelvis. Are your arms hanging differently? And where are you looking? How is your head balanced on the top of your spine? And now slowly just shift your weight from one leg to the other. And then begin to walk around and notice as you start to walk in any way that the movements that you've just been doing have affected something about maybe the ease of your walking, the sense of how you feel your feet in relationship to the floor. If you notice that you can look straight ahead towards the horizon as you're walking now, if your head feels a little less heavy, less pulled downwards. And if the space around you is more available to you. Try taking a few steps backwards if you're in a safe place where you can do that. And notice if going backwards feels more secure, gives you a different sense of how you shift your weight from one foot to the other. And then always after you walk backwards, walk forwards again and see if it affects your forward walking. So I have finished this lesson a little bit earlier than I had planned, a little bit earlier than the lessons usually do. But we've really covered the material and the variations, and I think it's better to finish early than to just make more things to do. And I'm sure that the sensations that you're having right now, some of them may not be so obvious right at the end of a lesson. Sometimes it takes a few hours, sometimes even a few days before you feel the effects of having spent this time focusing on something that sounds so minor, but actually the balance of your head is a very major part of being a human being. And you can feel maybe a little bit through some of the experiments we did, what a task that was for the young baby to learn to be able to hold its head, to move its head, to balance its head. And I hope that you'll feel some kind of nice effects from this in your uprightness and in the next few hours and next few days. So of course, this lesson was just the very beginning of a series that I'm offering. And in the series, we'll be moving from being in this very early baby time to learning how to roll a little bit, to learning how to make transitions. And I promise by the sixth lesson that you'll be on your feet. So I hope that many of you who haven't joined the course yet will join, and then I think it will be worth your while to go through the whole stages of development and to just feel how valuable that can be for you, especially those of you who maybe have watched babies go through this or are watching babies go through this. You'll appreciate much, much more what you did as a baby by seeing someone else go through these stages of development and by re-experiencing re-experiencing them yourselves in these lessons. So I just want to thank you very much.